I don't think sacred stories are meant to be preserved behind glass or stuck in a book. They're meant to evolve. Every spiritual tradition begins as a living conversation. Stories that help people to name what's real and what is wise, what brings us to life. But somewhere along the way, we always try to freeze it. We say, this is the final version, don't touch it. And the moment that happens, the stories start to die like a butterfly pinned to a board. There's this great archetypal moment in the Hebrew scriptures, right after Moses leads the people out of Egypt, and they've crossed the Red Sea and they're finally free. And they've reached the mountain and they're ready to meet this God that has liberated them. And then the moment comes and there's thunder and fire and this divine voice. But instead of opening themselves to it, the people shrink back. And they say, no, actually this is too much. Moses, you go, you talk to God for us, and then just give us the highlights. And I imagine God like sighing deeply and saying, fine, I'll just write down what you need to know on these stone tablets. But the stone tablets were never meant to replace the voice of wisdom. Because once the words are carved in stone, we tend to start worshiping the stone rather than listening for the voice. And the rest of the Bible, from the prophets to Jesus, just feels like a story trying to undo that moment. Of saying, stop obsessing over the stone. Find the words that are written on hearts of flesh. It makes sense though, because when we get scared, when something threatens us, we rush to preserve what we love, to try to keep it safe, even if it means squeezing the air out of it. With ancient Israel, these stories were told around campfires for generations, always evolving with the life of the people and the needs of the community. But when invasion and exile came, they panicked. They said, we might lose our identity. And they started writing everything down, and these stories that had been evolving and living, they became stuck in amber. And the same thing happened with the Jesus story. At first, it was fluid. It was told differently in every community that carried it. But when the temple fell and persecution started to break out, the stories were written down in a new genre called Gospels. And then, once these stories are written down, this other layer starts to come through as editors trying to stitch things together, and also burying what doesn't fit with their understanding of how this story works, which is how you wind up with Gospels buried in the desert until the 1940s. But through this process, what was once alive becomes fixed. The voice becomes a tablet of stone. The story becomes an idol. But the power of sacred stories has never been in preserving them. It's in their messy, beautiful plurality. Now, if that resonates with you and you are interested in engaging sacred stories in a creative and evolving way, seeing how they can speak to the needs of the present moment, consider checking out my new book, Meta Valley Gospel, because these stories are meant to point beyond themselves and to continue to breathe and grow.